Now this, an echo of the Cold War. President Trump tells the Pentagon to resume testing nuclear weapons for the first time in decades. Vice President J.D. Vance calls the move essential in maintaining the atomic arsenal.
We have a big arsenal, obviously. The Russians have a large nuclear arsenal. The Chinese have a large nuclear arsenal. Sometimes you've got to test it to make sure that it's functioning and working properly. But it's an important part of American national security to make sure that this nuclear arsenal we have actually functions properly. And that's part of a testing regime. To be clear, we know that it does work properly, but you got to keep on top of it over time. And the president just wants to make sure that we do that.
Joining us now is Brent Sadler, a former nuclear submariner, now senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Brent, I want to get your thoughts on this. How likely is it that we see this happening? And if we do, in what manner? I mean, is it going to be soon? Is it going to be underground? Where could it be? Give us sort of the gist of things.
Yes, I mean, this has been in the works for several years. The fact that the president chose to announce and to really publicly commit to this just before he met with President Xi Jinping is certainly not something to be missed for the strategic and the messaging significance of that. But you could start seeing testing, scaled underground testing in the very near future. Whether or not we're prepared is another question, but we definitely need to do this. It's long overdue. Nuclear weapons do go bad, kind of like bread, but we do need to test how the fundamentals are changing over time. You do that with digital kind of simulations, but those are only so good based on years-old data. So the testing is critical to continue to have high confidence in the viability of our nuclear deterrence that we rely on.
Did this come as a surprise to you? Because the president seemed to indicate just a few weeks ago that potentially he was pursuing a denuclearization track. I want to play you what he said recently.
One of the things I discussed with President Putin the other day, it wasn't just that, it was also other things. And I think the denuclearization is it's a big aim, but Russia's willing to do it, and I think China's going to be willing to do it.
So that was August 25th. What changed?
Well, clearly the Russians and the Chinese have no intent of backing down on their decades-long expansion and modernization of their nuclear weapon arsenal. The Chinese just a few years ago tripled the size of their intercontinental ballistic missile arsenal. And so there's no real pressure for them to actually rein it in unless they're confronted with a strong American nuclear deterrent. And I think the president realizes that. Putin also understands the president's desire to get rid of these very dangerous weapons, and that's why he's dangled it out several times as a way to try to forestall harsher actions against his war in Ukraine.
Worth noting, there's been some pushback on this. You had the Democrat on Armed Services ranking member saying Trump's nuclear saber rattling could upend decades of weapons cooperation. And then on the other end of things, you had the Iranian foreign minister, ironically, saying that this is a bad move. But while I have you, I want to ask you about a big announcement from the president's trip in Asia, saying that South Korea is going to be able to build a nuclear-powered submarine in the U.S. How significant is that for this region?
Well, I'm still early stages of understanding what the details and the contours of this deal are. Whether or not it is an addition to or a replay of what we've seen with the Australians in the very well documented AUKUS program, or if it's something different. And just to kind of point to what different could be, it was important that Hanwha and Philadelphia Shipyard were mentioned by the president as a potential place to do this. That's not a yard that's known for building or handling nuclear propulsion design or construction. But if you look at what the Chinese communists have done just recently in the last year, they've taken another page out of the Soviet book and to try to take a small modular reactor and backfill it on a conventional diesel submarine. This was a Yuan-class submarine that sank next to the pier last summer.
No doubt, whatever it is, they'll be happy to have it over there in China's backyard. All right, Brent Sadler, thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
On Wednesday, Senator Chuck Grassley released documents showing nearly 200 subpoenas that were issued in Operation Arctic Frost, seeking data from GOP lawmakers, conservative groups, and even media outlets. Here now with reaction to all of it, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator Blackburn, you are a woman of enormous talents and amazing unignorable accomplishments. Tennessee's first female United States Senator running for governor. You were in the State House there. You were in Congress. I just have to ask you, as a woman who served with Kamala Harris in the United States Senate, what is she talking about? We all have an off day. Kamala Harris's off day seems to be lasting a lifetime.
And in Tennessee, we would look at her and say, bless her heart. And Kellyanne, it just gets worse every time she talks. And, you know, listening to her, there's a great country song Randy Travis sings. It's called The Hole. And the message of the song is, when you're in the hole, stop digging. And I would encourage her, stop digging. Maybe I'll send her a copy of that so that she can hear it. But oh my goodness, I don't know what she's saying. She doesn't know what she's saying, but she is tossing out word salads. She is playing the blame game. And indeed, the Democrats are ready for her to take a vacation and to not be in the public eye.
I'm convinced, Senator Blackburn, that the RNC and the Trump super PACs must be paying Kamala Harris to still be out there. That would make sense. So let's turn to more serious matters than Kamala Harris's interviews. So this Operation Arctic Frost, this investigation into what Jack Smith was compelling media outlets, United States senators, conservative groups. We are digging into that. What are we learning? What have you learned about this week?
Well, indeed, 197 subpoenas on 430 individuals and groups. And what we do know is there were 9 senators. I was one of the 9, as you said. And it appears that Judge James Boasberg, an Obama appointee, a leftist, signed the subpoenas for our phone records from January of 21. Now, AT&T did not comply with that. They challenged it and saw it as a violation of the speech and debate clause. Verizon, my carrier, did not move to quash or challenge it, and so they complied. It was every phone call that was made or received where I physically stood when I received the call, and then who the call was either made to or from. So very invasive. It truly is a violation of the First and Fourth Amendment rights. It is a violation of the separation of powers, the Speech and Debate, and the Stored Communications Act. And the kicker on all of this is that Judge Boasberg put a non-disclosure order on top of the subpoena, saying that the carrier could not inform us what had been subpoenaed, and then also stating the reason for not disclosing was fearful of flight risk or intimidating witnesses or destroying or tampering with evidence, which all of this is absurd and ridiculous. And it just shows you how deeply weaponized the FBI and the DOJ was under Joe Biden. Because April 4th of 22, Chris Wray wrote a memo to Merrick Garland. Lisa Monaco said, sign off on this thing. And on April 5th, Merrick Garland signed off on the memo to establish Arctic frost. And the nebulous, vague language in that memo is something everybody should read. And it should really cause you to say, okay, if they did this to 9 sitting U.S. senators, what are they doing to every conservative in this country?
That is an excellent question, Senator Blackburn. I know you and your colleagues in the Senate are going to get to the bottom of it. And Senator Blackburn, you just reminded us all, every time somebody says, oh, Biden and his people didn't do anything, they didn't get anything done, you're reminding us that while that's true, it's also true they were doing way too much to invade our privacy and pick on people who disagree with them politically.
That's right.
Senator Marsha Blackburn, thank you very much.
That is very true.